My name is Claire. I'm 41. And I haven't said this out loud before, not even to my closest friend, but something inside me has been unraveling quietly, one thread at a time. I used to be someone who smiled without thinking. Someone who laughed from her belly, who danced barefoot in the kitchen while dinner burned and music played too loud. I used to feel wanted. Desired. And not just in the way that ends in bed, but in the way someone's eyes linger on you at breakfast, like you're still the best part of their day. That used to be Michael. My husband. We've been married 9 years. The first 3 were beautiful. He'd touch my back in passing, run his fingers through my hair when we watched TV, lift me up just to prove he still could. I never questioned if he saw me. I never wondered if I was enough. But something shifted. Not overnight. Not suddenly. It was like the light in a room slowly fading until you're sitting in the dark, not even sure when it happened. The kisses started to feel rehearsed, one on the cheek as he left, one on the forehead when he came home. His hand still found me in bed, sure, but it started to feel more like routine. Like checking a box. And maybe I didn't notice right away, or maybe I chose not to. I'd brush my hair in front of the mirror, hoping he'd say something. But he wouldn't look up from his phone. I'd wear the red silk nightgown he used to tear off me, and now, he barely blinked. When he did touch me, it was always at night, always in the dark, and it felt hollow. Like he was reaching for a version of me he remembered, not the one right in front of him. There was this one night, a few months ago, that stayed in my chest like a bruise. We were watching a movie, well, I was. He was scrolling. I leaned into him, wrapped my arms around his waist, and said, "I missed you today." He kissed the top of my head, like I was a kid, and said, "You're sweet," without even looking at me. I pulled back. Smiled like it didn't sting. But inside, I was crumbling. That night, he reached for me in bed. He kissed my neck, slid his hand down my thigh, but I just laid there, staring at the ceiling, trying not to cry. Not because I didn't love him, but because I felt invisible. I don't even know when I stopped talking to him about how I felt. Maybe I got tired of sounding needy. Or maybe I didn't have the words anymore. Every time I tried to explain it, he'd get defensive. Or say he was tired. Or promise things would change. They never did. And the thing is, I started noticing who did notice me. I didn't go looking for it. I didn't plan it. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't matter. Michael's son, from his first marriage, moved in with us last summer. Devin. He's 22. Polite, smart, quiet, but sharp in ways Michael stopped being. He sees everything. And I didn't realize how much that meant to me until one day, something happened that I can't take back. It was early morning. I'd just come out of the shower, wrapped in a towel. I thought I was alone. But Devin walked into the hallway, and before I could say anything, the towel slipped. It hit the floor. And he didn't blink. He didn't laugh. He didn't apologize. He didn't look away. He just stood there, looking at me like I was something he'd been trying not to look at for weeks. And I didn't pick it up right away. That moment, that awful, terrifying, electric moment, it was the first time in a long time I felt seen. And I hate that it happened. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't shake something awake in me. That's when I realized, something in my marriage had broken long before that towel hit the floor. Michael's a trauma surgeon. He's used to high pressure, long shifts, and saving lives with hands that never shake. But at home, those same hands have stopped knowing what to do with me. He thinks love is keeping the lights on. Fixing the leaky faucet. Bringing home groceries. And when that doesn't land, when I look at him like I need more, he just leans in, kisses my neck, and says, "I'm here, baby." Isn't that enough? But I don't want someone to just be here. I want someone who sees me. We had this argument 2 weeks after the towel incident. Michael had just come off a 30-hour shift. I made dinner, lit candles, even wore lipstick, something I hadn't done in months. He walked in, dropped his keys on the counter, and kissed me on the cheek like I was the nanny. Not a word about the effort. Not a glance at the table. I tried not to let it hurt. I served him a plate, sat across from him, and said, "How was your day?" He shrugged, forked some food into his mouth, and mumbled, "Same old. Another car accident, one lost. Got a headache now." I reached for his hand. "I'm sorry, baby. You've been working so hard." He squeezed my fingers, but only for a second, then pulled away to check his phone. Devin came down the stairs right then, shirtless, sweat glistening from his post-workout skin, and said, "Smells amazing, Claire." He smiled directly at me, a real smile, the kind that starts in the eyes. And Michael? He didn't notice. Not me. Not his son. Not anything. After dinner, he showered and came to bed. I was already under the covers, curled up and facing the wall. I wasn't angry. Just hollow. I felt him climb in behind me. His hand slid across my waist. He kissed my shoulder, whispered, "Missed you," and pressed himself against me. I froze. Not because I didn't want to be touched. But because, that's all it ever was with him now. Touch. No questions. No connection. Just a pattern he'd memorized. His version of love. "I'm tired," I whispered, my voice tight. He sighed, pulled away. The mattress shifted as he turned his back to me. The silence after that was unbearable. The next morning, I tried. I really did. I sat across from him at breakfast and said, "I feel like we're not really talking lately." He didn't even look up from the paper. "We're both tired, Claire. That's all. Things will feel normal again soon." But what if I don't want normal? What if I want something better? That got his attention. He put the paper down, frowned. "What are you saying? That you're unhappy?" I looked at him, and saw someone who genuinely didn't understand. Someone who believed that because he came home every night, because he wasn't cruel, because he provided, he was doing everything right. "I just want to feel close again," I said softly. He reached across the table and took my hand. "Then come closer." But that's the thing. I was already reaching, emotionally. And he was only reaching physically. He stood up, walked over, and kissed me. Hard. Passionate. His hand cupped my face like it used to. But something in me clenched, not opened. My lips didn't move. My eyes didn't close. When he pulled back, he looked confused. "What's going on with you lately?" And I didn't know how to answer. Because how do you explain that your body misses someone who's right in front of you? That your skin still remembers the heat, but your heart feels cold? Devin passed behind us just then, heading out the door with his gym bag. He didn't say anything. Just gave me that glance, quiet, observant, like he knew exactly what was happening, and hated watching it. And I hated that I noticed him noticing. But worse. I hated that part of me didn't look away. I started flinching. Not in a dramatic way, not like in the movies, where a woman pulls away violently or gasps, but in tiny, invisible ways that only I could feel. A stiffening in my spine when Michael's hand slid around my waist in the kitchen. A silent breath held when his lips found the back of my neck in bed. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. That's what we become, a couple of polite pretenders, performing the motions of intimacy without the music. One evening, I was folding laundry on the couch when he came up behind me, slapped my butt playfully, and chuckled, still got it. It was meant to be harmless. Flirty. Something he'd always done. But I froze. My hand stopped mid-fold, gripping one of his scrub shirts, and I just stared at the fabric like it might give me a way out. Don't, I said quietly. Michael tilted his head. Don't what? I'm not in the mood for that. He backed up, hands raised like I'd accused him of something unforgivable. Jesus, Claire. It was a joke. But it wasn't. Not to me. Because that kind of touch, one that used to feel fun, light, easy, now felt like pressure. Like expectation. Like another reminder that he still wanted my body, but not my mind. Not my heart. Not the thoughts I'd been choking down for months. Later that night, we were brushing our teeth together. A domestic ritual we'd perfected over the years. Side by side at the sink, half-dressed, sleepy. He leaned over and kissed my cheek, toothpaste still in his mouth. It was clumsy. Sticky. Thoughtless. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. He paused, toothbrush in hand. What? Nothing, I said, avoiding the mirror. He stepped behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. His chin rested on my shoulder. I still think you're the sexiest woman I've ever seen, he murmured. I closed my eyes. I wanted to want that. God, I missed wanting that. But instead of melting, I stiffened again. My body responded the way it's trained to, polite, present, but numb. I'm tired, I said. I saw it in the mirror, the flicker of hurt, of confusion, before he let me go. I crawled into bed and lay there with my back to him, replaying that phrase over and over. Why does everything have to turn into sex? Why is that the only way he knows how to show love? Why doesn't he ask how I am, really? Why doesn't he sit with me in the quiet anymore? Why can't he just hold me without reaching under my shirt? I want connection. Conversation. I want to be seen without being undressed. But the problem is, I'm not sure how to ask for that anymore. Devin started staying out later. Less time at home. Less tension in the air. But every time I passed him on the stairs or in the hallway, there was this pause between us. This unspoken moment, thick with everything we weren't saying. He looked at me differently now. Not with disrespect. Not even desire, really. More like recognition. Like he saw the ache in me, and understood it. And maybe that's what scared me most. Because it was starting to feel like he understood me more than my husband did. It started with a chicken. A dry, overcooked piece of lemon garlic chicken. We were sitting at the table, the three of us, me, Michael, and Devin. The quiet was awkward but familiar. Michael was scrolling through his messages between bites. Devin was polite as always, quietly eating and nodding along to whatever half-conversation Michael attempted. And me? I was watching a version of my life that no longer felt like mine. I had planned that dinner. Cleaned the house. Set the table. I even wore the earrings Michael got me for our anniversary 3 years ago, hoping he'd notice. He didn't. So, how's the hospital? I asked. My voice felt too loud in the space. Michael looked up. Hectic. Always is. That was it. No elaboration. No curiosity about my day in return. Devin glanced up from his plate. Claire made all this while working on that grant proposal too. That's multitasking. I offered him a small smile. It was kind, too kind. Dangerous. Michael barely looked up. She's always been good at keeping busy. Something about the way he said it, like I was a machine. Like I was just functioning. I stabbed a piece of chicken with my fork and said, "You could say thank you, you know." He blinked. I just did. No, I said, my voice cracking slightly. You said I'm good at keeping busy. That's not the same as appreciation. Michael leaned back in his chair. Claire, I'm tired. I've been in surgery for 12 hours. Can we not do this right now? And I've been tired for months, Michael, I snapped. My voice came out louder than I meant, sharper than I expected. Tired of being invisible. Tired of pretending like everything's fine when I feel like I'm disappearing in front of you. Devon looked down at his plate, awkward but still. He didn't leave. Didn't excuse himself. Michael put down his fork. Where is this coming from? You don't kiss me like you used to. You don't talk to me unless it's about the house or groceries. And when you do touch me, it's like you're trying to fix something without knowing what's broken. Michael stood up, jaw tense. So now I'm the bad guy? For being exhausted? For trying to keep this house running? I come home, I don't cheat, I don't scream, I'm here. Isn't that enough? No, I said, standing too. My hands were trembling. It's not enough to just be here, Michael. I want a partner. Not someone who clocks in and out of our marriage like it's another shift. He stared at me like I was speaking a language he'd forgotten. You're acting like I'm some stranger to you. That's exactly what you feel like, I whispered. A stranger I used to love. For a second, the room was silent. And in that stillness, I felt myself crack open. I started crying, not the delicate, dramatic kind, but the quiet, ugly kind. Tears that burned. A chest that tightened. The release of everything I'd been holding back for too long. Michael didn't come closer. He looked stunned. Like the idea of me breaking down was harder to process than an open wound in the ER. Devon finally stood. Quietly placed his plate in the sink. He didn't say a word. Just looked at me as he passed, not judgmental, not uncomfortable, just aware. That glance hit me harder than anything Michael had said all week. After the meltdown, I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub, shaking. Shame wrapped itself around me like steam. Was I losing my mind? Had I gone too far? But deep down, I knew, that explosion wasn't sudden. It had been coming for months. That moment at the dinner table, the sharpness, the breakdown, it was just the first time I let myself stop pretending. The towel dropping. Devon's gaze. That wasn't the start of the unraveling. It was just the first time someone truly saw the unraveling for what it was. The days after the dinner blow-up felt like walking through fog. Michael stopped trying. At first, I thought he just needed time, to cool off, to reflect, but then I realized, he wasn't angry. He was done trying to understand. He still slept beside me, but farther away. He still brewed his coffee, but didn't pour me a cup. The silence between us stopped being sharp. It turned into something worse, apathy. Like neither of us knew how to reach across the void anymore. I missed him. And I hated that I missed someone who hadn't looked me in the eyes in weeks. I started watching him in small ways, the curve of his shoulders while he cooked eggs, the crease in his brow when he read his texts. There were signs of wear in him too. He looked older. Tired in a deeper way. I caught him once, standing in the backyard in his scrubs, just staring at the sky. Like he wasn't sure where he belonged anymore. And I knew then, he was hurting too. Maybe not in the same way I was. But the ache was real. He just didn't know how to say it. And maybe I didn't know how to listen without expecting him to say it exactly right. There was one night I remember clearly. It was cold, the first real chill of the season. I was curled up on the far end of the couch, reading a book I wasn't really absorbing. Michael came in, paused like he might sit beside me, then changed his mind and walked upstairs instead. Devon was coming in the front door at the same time, earbuds in, hoodie damp from the drizzle outside. We met eyes. Just for a second. He looked at me with something careful in his expression, like he knew I was unraveling, but wouldn't say it out loud. He didn't flirt. He didn't linger. He just nodded gently, like a silent "I see you," and walked upstairs to his room. It shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. Because the last person I expected to feel safe around was him. And somehow, he was the only one who didn't treat me like I was broken, dramatic, or invisible. I don't know what's worse, missing your husband while he's under the same roof, or feeling seen by someone you shouldn't even think about twice. I started wondering what was left to save. Michael and I didn't fight. We didn't scream. We didn't throw plates or storm out. But we also didn't try. Not anymore. And love, I think, dies more from neglect than from war. One morning, I stood in front of the mirror, hair tied up, robe wrapped tight, staring at the reflection of someone I barely recognized. My skin looked dull. My eyes were tired. My smile, gone. And I asked myself, quietly, honestly, am I still in this, or am I just afraid to leave? The question sat with me all day. That night, as Michael slept beside me, deep, dreamless sleep, I lay awake, feeling the weight of everything we'd let slip. And I knew I had a choice to make. Stay, and try to build something back from the ashes. Or leave, and find out who I was without him. Either way, something was coming. Something honest. And for the first time in a long time, I wanted truth more than I wanted comfort. It happened on a Sunday morning. The sky was gray. The kind of soft, overcast gray that makes the whole house feel like it's holding its breath. I came downstairs in my robe, hair still damp from a shower I didn't bother to dry. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the heater and the creak of the floorboards under my feet. Michael was asleep on the couch. He'd come home late the night before, another emergency at the hospital, or so he said. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to. He was curled up under the throw blanket, one arm over his eyes, like he wanted to block out everything. I stood there for a long moment, just watching him. The man I had married. The man I had once known down to his every breath. Now, he looked like a stranger who knew my name but not my heart. I sat on the edge of the armchair across from him, not ready to wake him, not ready to speak. But he stirred anyway. He blinked at me, groggy. Hey, he said softly. Hey, I replied. We sat like that for a minute. The kind of minute that carries the weight of years. I'm sorry, he finally said. For how distant I've been. For not listening. His voice cracked a little, just barely. But I heard it. I nodded. I'm sorry too. For holding it in until it boiled over. He rubbed his face with both hands, sat up. I didn't know you felt that lonely. I thought I was showing love. I thought doing all the right things would be enough. They were, for a while, I whispered. But then I needed more than tasks. I needed us. And I didn't know how to ask without sounding ungrateful. Silence again. And then he reached over and placed his hand gently on my knee. It wasn't sexual. It wasn't desperate. It was real. I don't want to lose you, he said. For the first time in months, I let the wall between us fall just enough to say, I don't know if we've already lost each other or not, but I don't want to pretend anymore. He nodded. And for once, he didn't rush to fix it. He just sat in the mess of it with me. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch beyond that quiet hand on my knee. But in that silence, something shifted. Not a miracle. Not a movie ending. But maybe, the beginning of honesty. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting here, alone in the kitchen, fingers wrapped around a cold mug of tea, watching the sunlight stretch across a table we barely use anymore, I wouldn't have believed you. Not because I didn't know things were broken. But because I was still pretending they weren't. My name is Claire. I'm 41. And this past year stripped me bare. Not just the moment the towel hit the floor, not just the way Devin looked at me and didn't blink. But everything that came before, the slow quieting of my voice, the quiet erosion of my self-worth, the numbness I carried like armor. You know, it's easy to point to the wrong thing. To say, that moment, that glance, that silence, that kiss that didn't land. But the truth is, love doesn't die in a moment. It dies in inches. In sighs. In dishes washed without gratitude. In nights where you sleep back to back, both of you convinced the other stopped caring first. That's how it happened with Michael. He's not a bad man. He's not cruel. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being each other's home. And I tried to hold it together. I tried to believe that if I was patient enough, gentle enough, forgiving enough, things would fix themselves. But people don't fix themselves for the ones they forget how to see. Devin? He saw me. That doesn't mean I crossed a line. But it does mean something dangerous lived in the space between us, something unspoken but sharp enough to bruise. The moment the towel dropped wasn't about lust. It was about hunger. Hunger to be noticed. To be felt. To be real to someone again. I'm not proud of it. But I won't lie and say it didn't matter. Because for a split second, I felt awake. And sometimes, that's what betrayal looks like, not cheating, not touching, but emotionally leaning into someone you shouldn't. What I've learned is that silence in a relationship is never innocent. It's where all the questions grow. Am I still wanted? Do they still see me? Have I changed too much, or not enough? Michael and I didn't fall apart in one fight. We drifted apart because we both stopped showing up fully. He stopped hearing my loneliness. And I stopped saying it out loud. We've started talking more, since that morning on the couch. No promises. No pretending. Some nights we share stories. Some nights we don't speak at all. But at least now, the silence is honest. I still don't know where we'll end up. Maybe we'll rebuild something slower, gentler. Maybe we'll choose to walk away with grace. But either way, I'm not disappearing anymore. I've learned that desire without intimacy is hollow. That touch without presence is just motion. And that being seen, truly seen, shouldn't feel like a betrayal. So, if you're listening to this, wondering if it's all in your head, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me: you are not crazy for needing more. You are not selfish for wanting to feel alive. You are not dramatic for crying over the absence of something that used to be there. You're human. And your heart deserves to be met, not managed. I don't know what comes next. But I know this: the next time the towel drops, metaphorically or otherwise, I won't be afraid of what it reveals. Because I've finally stopped hiding from myself.